in the run-up to this speech, I spoke with a number of Republicans who say they wanted to hear President Trump express his empathy for Americans who don't feel like the economy is working for them yet. We heard the president say that the economy is roaring. Do you think that he expressed empathy for those Americans who say they are still struggling?
Kristen, I can tell you the president never stops working for the American people. And I think he made the point that he has brought down prices. He has brought down mortgage rates, the large tax cuts. I'm also the IRS commissioner. I can tell you that 47% of the returns we're getting, Kristen, have one of his 4 signature policies: no tax and tips, no tax and overtime, no tax and Social Security, deductibility of auto loans. So Americans are feeling that, and I think we will see we're going to have very large refunds, and Americans will change their withholding, and I think that they are going to see it. We saw a big jump way above expectations in consumer confidence today. And Chris, the important thing was it's in the forward expectations. So if the Democrats want to run on the economy in November, bring it on, because I think we're going to have a great economy this year. We had a great economy last year. Fourth quarter would have been great if it weren't for the Democratic shutdown.
Well, and as you know, some prices have come down. Some prices, some groceries, for example, have gone back up. And if you look at the polling, the president's underwater on his handling of the economy, that critical issue. So what do you say to Americans who argue they're not feeling change fast enough?
Well, again, Kristen, the president's numbers have been improving since October. Prices are coming down, and I think we are going to see an acceleration here. We've had real wage gains every month since the president's been in office. And again, of course, Americans are traumatized. They had a 21.5%. The cost of living increase in the Biden administration, more for working Americans. That was probably north of 30, a loss of the 3 or 4% in real purchasing power. Inflation was up 2.7% last year. I think it's going to come back down to the Fed's target this year. And we're working every day to bring it down.
Mr. Secretary, I have to ask you about this announcement that President Trump made. He said that the administration will give what he referred to as often forgotten American workers access to the same type of retirement plan offered to every federal worker, vowing, quote, "We will match your contributions up to $1,000 each year." Can you tell me from a practical standpoint, how will this work? Does it need congressional approval, and is that possible in this election year?
Well, we can do it through reconciliation. And again, this is the president coming back for working Americans, those who've been left behind, the ones who don't have the 401ks. Certainly the federal employees, Congress, get all these benefits, and we will be rolling that out in the coming weeks and months. The president wanted to preview it in his speech, but I think this is going to be a very big part of working Americans' retirement program, because there is a tremendous amount of financial insecurity. The president also talked about his signature policy, Trump accounts, $1,000 for every newborn born during his term that's going to be invested in the stock market. And Kristen, currently 38% of Americans have no exposure to the equity market, and we think over time this is going to remedy that, so everybody will have a stake in our great innovative economy and the American dream.
All right, let me turn now to tariffs. Obviously, a number of questions swirling around what happens next after the Supreme Court did strike down the president's ability to impose the tariffs. Let me ask you.
No, Kristen, let's be precise here. What the Supreme Court did was rule against the president's ability to use a narrow mandate, i.e. EPA. It did not strike down the 232 or 301 tariffs, and it did not strike down his ability to it actually reinforced his ability to move those up, and he has the ability to use something else called Section 122. So that's what the Supreme Court did on Friday. It was a very narrow ruling.
And it's my understanding that these new tariffs that he's imposed, he can impose them, the 15% tariffs that he announced over the weekend for 150 days. Given the legal challenges, given the Supreme Court ruling, why not go to Congress? Republicans have the majority in both chambers, and codify this in Congress.
Because, again, Kristen, I think what you, the American people, have been misled. With the 232s and the 301s, Congress did give the president authority to put on tariffs. So what we're going to do is the 122s are a bridge for the 150 days, and then primarily with 301s, USTR will do studies, and those are country studies, and we'll see, we will switch over to increase 301s, and I can tell you at Treasury, our estimate is that using these increased authorities, the temporary bridge of 122 for 2026, the tariff income is virtually unchanged.
So are you saying that these tariffs are going to be permanent and that you think you have the legal authority to make these tariffs permanent, the 15% tariffs?
Again, not the 15, Kristen. The 15 is a 150-day authority. What we have the ability to do is to do studies, and the 301s primarily, but also the 232s, can move back up to the previous tariff level. And since President Trump's first term, the 301s and the 232s have proven very resilient. They've survived more than 4,000 legal challenges.
And let me just zoom out. Is the goal to make tariffs writ large permanent?
The goal is to reshore American industry and stop unfair trade practices.
All right, let me ask you, because obviously one of the questions is about potential refunds. The president didn't say whether he's going to refund what's been estimated to be about 100. Let me ask the question. Let me just ask the question, because it's about $134 billion in revenue. You told me in September, quote, we would have to give a refund if the Supreme Court ruled against the tariffs and decided that was necessary. FedEx is now suing the administration for tariff refunds. If the court sides with FedEx, Mr. Secretary, is the administration prepared to offer those refunds?
Well, Kristen, let's be clear here. The Supreme Court remanded the refunds back down to a lower court. There will be a 42-day period before that even happens, and then we will see what the lower court says, and we will follow what the lower court says to do.
So meaning if the lower court says that you do have to issue these refunds, the administration is prepared to issue refunds?
We will follow the ruling of the lower court, Kristen.
And your reaction to this FedEx case?
Well, I'll point out a lot of things. The CEO of FedEx is on the U.S.-China Business Council, which I find very interesting because, China is the largest payer of U.S. tariffs. So, take that for what you will. And the other thing, too, is why don't we see if these corporations, I think all these corporations should come out and tell everyone, the CEO of FedEx, you should have him on your show and have him explain how he's going to get the money back to the consumers if he, in fact, pass those costs along.
All right, let me ask you, broadly speaking, this speech was historic because it was the longest State of the Union address in history. It was also the first State of the Union address, according to our research, that was delivered against the backdrop of a partial government shutdown. Of course, as you know, Mr. Secretary, Department of Homeland Security currently shut down over this battle over reforms to ICE. Now that the president has delivered his State of the Union address, do you think there can be a deal to reopen the government? And is the president willing to make some concessions to Democrats to make that happen?
Well, we'll have to see, Kristen. The Democrats of the party have shut down. They were responsible for the longest shutdown in government history. It brought our GDP down in the fourth quarter between 1% and 2%. They've shown over and over again they don't care about the American people. They don't care about the economy. They want what they want, and it'll be up to the president to negotiate with them.
Well, but I guess the question is, and some Democrats say that the White House hasn't been negotiating. How long do you think this shutdown is going to last? Republicans are in control of both chambers and the White House.
Again, you're in control, but are you going to say? Kristen? Are you saying that Republicans should break the filibuster?
Well, no, you tell me. Do you think Republicans should break the filibuster?
You are not in control. I published a Washington Post op-ed saying that Republicans should break the filibuster because the Democrats have said that they were going to do it. If it weren't for Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, who the Democrats sent home, they would have broken it in President Biden's terms. So, in game theory, when you have a bad actor who is repeatedly been a bad actor, you should move first. So I actually think we should. I think we should do it for the SAVE Act, and I think we shouldn't let the Democrats shut down the government again.
Food supplies have been completely wiped out. We have a evacuation of all counties. I report complete devastation. We have a giant squall, cloud, scouring up everything in their path. This is a total loss of life.
There are forces in this world that remind us of how fragile we are. We thought we were safe. We thought it could never happen to us. Then life like a fog descends upon us, blanketing our memories. Through the haze, we travel its hidden paths, lost in its secret places. And when the storm, turbulent and immovable, forces us to shelter, we remember. It calls to us, calls us back to the ports and the harbors of our past. We fight the currents that pull and drag us off course, not a light or star to chart the way. And when we arrive, we don't always know it at first, the places we once loved guised by time. Then we see it, the place we've been trying to get back to. Safe at last, we've found our way home.